Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Today we're going to be talking about the newly announced Destiny 2 Renegades expansion, which has been causing a significant amount of controversy because it's a Star Wars inspired expansion and the Destiny community isn't really seeming to vibe with that particularly much. So, to properly explore this discourse, we need to do a few things. First of all, we need to actually see what the source material looks like, what the Renegades teaser is, what the announcement was like, etc. And then we can dig into what people are not resonating with and what my stance on it as well, because I have a pretty firm opinion about this, and I'm going to share that with you today alongside trying to present a couple of different viewpoints. So, the initial reveal of Renegades happened during the Edge of Fate reveal event. We always knew that the next year of Destiny was going to be split into 2 expansions instead of 1. That's been old news for a while now, but we didn't know the name of the next expansion, or at least I didn't know it, and so being told that it was Renegades was a surprise to me, and this is what they had to say when they sort of gave us a bit more info.
As Dylan mentioned, we've talked about the Edge of Fate, but this is the first year we're going to be doing 2 expansions over the course of a year. Can you tell us a little bit about Renegades?
Yeah, so we're going to have a dedicated reveal for Renegades in September alongside our major update, Ash and Iron.
I'm already just going to pause it there just for a moment. So this is Allison, and she had already talked about a lot of the Destiny story stuff that was happening in Edge of Fate here. But what she's saying here about the fact that there's going to be a proper reveal for it later is just due to the fact that technically, they probably could have gotten away with avoiding really giving any information about Renegades in this stream, and I don't think people would have bat a massive eyelid, but that's what she's referring to when she's saying, like, there is going to be another reveal event, don't you worry.
But earlier, we were talking about how sometimes our formulas can constrain us from experimenting and innovating. And so in that spirit, Renegades is going to be very different from the Edge of Fate. What I can tell you, and we'll talk plenty about it later, is that we're going to be experimenting and innovating with activities, with social mechanics, and more.
And this is really important because this builds on stuff that the Bungie team already told us at the end of 2024 when they acknowledged in all of their dev insight articles that there were certain things about Destiny campaigns that they weren't super happy with and they wanted to mix up, right? So they wanted to play with non-linearity, for example, and that's something that we're going to be seeing in Edge of Fate on Kepler. Similarly, they wanted to try entirely new types of game modes and entirely new approaches to campaigns and storytelling so that it wasn't just the same old, you get a campaign, you play through it, it's linear and it's samey, and then you go about your day with the endgame content. Like, they wanted to freshen the experience, and that sounds like something that they're leaning into with Renegades, and they mentioned briefly here social mechanics and innovating with activities as well, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment here.
But more importantly, I want to talk about our inspiration. And so I have to kind of tee it up first.
Inspiration.
So Renegades is going to be a Destiny, definitively Destiny expansion.
Okay, Renegades is going to be a definitively Destiny expansion. Just making sure that we're all hearing that.
This is part of the Fate saga, and it's going to push it forward in important ways.
Okay, it's part of the Fate saga. Just for context, in case you haven't seen the stuff from yesterday, the Fate saga is the new multi-year saga of Destiny 2, now that the light and dark saga that we've had over the previous 10 years of Destiny 2 has come to a close, right? So the stuff that we're doing basically from here onwards in the game, like Rite of the Nine and stuff like that, is all part of this new entire multi-year saga.
Introduce characters that we're going to spend time with for years to come. It is an essential Fate saga story, and it's an homage to a...
It's an homage. Okay, key detail there. Let's keep listening.
Universe that has inspired Bungie from the start. It's a universe that all of us here on the couch grew up with, as well as everyone else at the studio and millions of you back at home too. It is a peanut butter and chocolate combination inside of what we're making that could only be possible in the kind of world that we build here. And so I am absolutely thrilled to be able to give our first sneak peek at Destiny 2 Renegades.
So just before we get into the sneak peek here, I've just Googled for the Google definition of homage, just so I can share that with the class. And Google says, special honor or respect shown publicly, as a noun, and historically, formal public acknowledgement of feudal allegiance, which I think is pretty funny, seeing as there's so much feudal warring factions in Destiny. But we can focus on the former definition, right? Special honor or respect shown publicly. So they've said the words inspired by, they've said the words homage, but they've also said it's a definitively Destiny expansion, and it'll introduce you to characters we're going to spend time with for years, and it'll move the Destiny story forward in meaningful ways, etc. Okay? Let's watch the teaser for it now. So it's very Star Wars, right? The aesthetic being presented, very heavily Star Wars. My chat pointed out that this alarm sound is literally the exact same as this alarm sound. So like, it's clear where they're going with this. You've obviously got the blaster here, which is very Star Wars. The lighting on the Bungie text, actually, at the start of it. Just here, like, this alone feels very Star Wars-y. The lighting in the corridor feels Star Wars-y. So much about it, right? It's really screaming Star Wars aesthetic. And these are very Star Wars-y robes, like very Jedi kind of vibes. This really looks like a kind of bounty hunter kind of fit. And this one is slightly less definitively Star Wars, I think, but still has the Star Wars vibe going on. And then we see this, lightsaber. Okay, obviously Star Wars, let's keep going. What does that look like? It looks like Tatooine. Gonna pull up a picture. Here's a shot of Tatooine, just so you can kind of get the feel for what they're going for. Pretty similar vibes, right? Similar situation. Then on top of that, I mean, the aesthetic of the word Renegades, as Ladgar in my chat points out, feels pretty Star Wars-y. Like, there's a ton here of Star Wars-y stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like, yeah, the Sparrows going past it. That feels like pod racing a little bit, or just sort of public transport, I guess, but it still feels Star Wars-y. Then we get to this screen, full reveal September 9th. So that's what I was mentioning before. We're not at the full reveal yet, so it's still super early days. It's releasing in December, and down here, you've obviously got the Bungie and Lucasfilm Games marks, and then you've got this sentence that says content's going to be in the reward pass, and you've got Star Wars, copyright, and trademarked 2025 Lucasfilm Limited, all rights reserved. Cool, okay, fine. Let's keep it going here. So that, as a sort of bit of a mic drop for people that love Star Wars and love Destiny, might seem like it would get a very positive community reaction, but the reaction's been very mixed, which seems to happen quite a lot with anything Bungie does ever. I actually would challenge you to think about the last thing in Destiny that was like an expansion or what have you, that was universally only praised. What was that? Does it ever happen? Do people actually like this game? Okay, let's move on. Let's just hear what they have to say here.
Okay, Robbie, what did we just see?
Yeah, so that's Renegades, which is coming out this December. And to really drive it home here, Renegades is a one-of-a-kind Destiny experience, right?
It's a Destiny experience.
And just like we on the Destiny team have taken inspiration from other genres like dark fantasy or cosmic horror, Renegades takes the space western vibe and aesthetic that is Star Wars, and it puts it through that Destiny lens. And ultimately, it's created a new lawless frontier that is emerging within Seoul. And so, like, we're so excited to show Renegades off a little bit today and to be talking about it more in the future in September alongside the free major update with Ash and Iron. But right now, today, we're focused on Rite of the Nine and what's right around the corner with the Edge of Fate.
Absolutely.
Cool. So looking through the Destiny lens at space western, just as they've been inspired by other genres like cosmological horror and things along those lines, cool. That's a little bit of flavor, right? But the stream here was not the only place where we got information about what Renegades would be. So let's look at some of the other sources of information about it now. If we log into Destiny here and we go to the director, and then rather than just clicking directly into this expansion node, if you go up here to the timeline, you can hover over Renegades and it says, the future remains unclear. Dive into the criminal underworld and take down an evil empire. venture into a lawless frontier and reveal deeper mysteries about a new Dredgen in Sol. Build your power, credits, and notoriety. So this is interesting because it's very different information to what was presented on the stream, but it's building on the stream information quite a bit as well, right? So in the stream, Allison briefly touched on the fact that they've been a bit confined and constrained with their previous campaign formats. And so they wanted to play with new things, right? They wanted to make new entire game experiences that might not even necessarily feel like old Destiny campaigns. They might feel like new games entirely, but still within Destiny, right? That's something that the team's been aspiring towards ever since they put out those dev insight articles at the end of 2024. And so here, saying that you're going to be able to build your power, familiar with Destiny, credits, okay, I guess Glimmer equivalent, pretty familiar, and notoriety, yeah, sure, overlap there as well. So we're not like that far away, but you could really easily interpret what's being said here as like, you're going to be in a completely different kind of brain space when you're playing it, and you're going to be focusing on like faction reputation to build notoriety amongst whether it's the Hutts or whether it's the droids or whether it, who knows, right? Like the underworld, the smugglers, the glup shittos, like all of those different factions that might be present, and those underworld bosses or what have you. Maybe you're building notoriety with them. Maybe that's going to be the way that they kind of anchor the story, is not so much based on like missions going A to B to C, but rather it's a little bit more like, okay, we're going to have a whole swath of bounties that you can take down, and it's more of a bounties feel because you're a bounty hunter, or like, who knows, right? Like they might lean into some of those things, or they might kind of still keep it Destiny. But regardless of which direction they take it in, it seems like we're just getting a sort of sprinkle of flavor of what that might be today. But notice that nowhere here so far have they said that, like, we'll be joined by Darth Data, yay, or like, we'll be fighting clones, or whatever, right? Like, they're not going so far as to say, you will be on the Death Star. They're saying it's a Destiny story with Destiny characters that has Destiny locations, and it's going to be an homage, right? Which is paying respect to the Star Wars universe, but they haven't explicitly said anywhere here that, like, we are going to be being Boba Fett for a day. Like, that doesn't seem to be the direction they're going in, right? But I think that point has been lost a bit on Twitter, and that's easily done these days because Twitter doesn't actually try to engage with things in good faith, right? Like, we're kind of aware of that at this point. Twitter is no longer a place for truly meaningful discussion about stuff, in my view. It's a place where people rage bait for fun. They are in constant bad faith. There's bots everywhere that totally disrupt whether it's actual active discussion or just the replies of stuff, or just like, it's a mess. But even so, I think it's worth engaging with some of the things that people are saying on there, because there are still some humans that are trying to get their points across on that godforsaken website. So let's take a look at some of those people, right? So Matthew Ruholt here, engaging, as far as I can tell, completely in good faith, right? Says, Renegades has me a bit worried. Collabs are cool for cosmetic packs or fun limited time modes, but for an entire major expansion / narrative to be an official collab, meh. I don't mind inspiration / vibe, but if Boba Fett shows up as an NPC, I think I'd eat my hat. Okay? And the reason I bring this up is that Robbie Stevens, who was on the couch, I believe, in the reveal stream, says, rest assured, Guardians, everything in Renegades is in canon for the Destiny universe. So no Darth Data. Okay? We're leaning into the aesthetic, tone, and vibe of Star Wars to tell a Destiny story with Destiny characters. So, unfortunately for the child in my soul, I will not be able to spawn into a Destiny level as General Grievous and cut some Guardians in half. As much as I would love that, it's not happening, okay? Now, it's Destiny characters, Destiny story, but they are leaning into the aesthetic, right? And even that, I think, has some people worried. So DMG quote tweeted this tweet and added to it and said, the team's taking great care to make Renegades a Destiny story. We'll have more to share in September during our next reveal as we approach our December launch date for Renegades. So he's reiterating the fact that, like, guys, it's a while away, so we've got plenty more that we're going to be able to share, but like, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Then the Destiny 2 team account tweeted this about Vault Space, which was like a separate kind of thing. People were melting down over the idea that there's not going to be a Vault Space upgrade in Edge of Fate. And they said, Vault Space is not changing in Edge of Fate, but we do have additional Vault Space and quality of life features planned for Renegades later this year. The reason I bring this up is that, remember when I said that Allison mentioned social features and that kind of activity innovation? If they're also planning Vault Space and QOL features for Renegades, maybe we're going to get some kind of social housing, and in your social housing, you can put more stuff, or like, who knows, right? But they're playing with these ideas, and that's also something that Renegades is intended to deliver. So that's some of the source sort of material from Bungie devs, etc. on Twitter. Where else can we learn about Renegades? Well, the Year of Prophecy Ultimate Edition on Steam gives us basically nothing. It just says more information on the next expansion coming soon. And then if we go down here, it says experience a full year of exploration and adventure with Destiny 2 Year of Prophecy, 2 expansions, and the start of a new saga. There's no mention of like Star Wars even here. Like, it's very, very little. So they're being very sparse on these details. And so the only other main source that we can consult here is this Bungie.net blog post, which says, during the reveal event, we also announced Renegades. It's inspired by the legendary Star Wars universe, and it merges Destiny's distinctive storytelling and gameplay with themes and elements drawn from the iconic sci-fi franchise. The reveal featured a brief cinematic teaser, a definitive Destiny expansion with a narrative integral to the Fate saga, while also suffused with inspiration from and homage to Star Wars. Renegades will introduce new Destiny characters, innovative activities, and evolved mechanics designed to surprise and delight players. So some of this is just the usual kind of marketing stuff that you would see, like surprising and delighting and all that stuff, but some of it is basically echoing some of the things that we heard on those other sources as well. Now, as far as I've been able to tell, that is basically all the Renegades official information so far. There might be like a couple of other bits and pieces here and there, but it pretty much all points towards the same information, which is this sort of thing. And so I guess where I'd like to begin is where some people are still upset with the Renegades positioning, even though they've clarified several times that it's in-canon characters, it's in-canon stuff, like it's all in canon, and it's a Destiny story. It's not going to be Glup Shitto walking around fighting Varth Data. So an example comes from my friend Star, who responded to my tweet about Renegades and said, I'm willing to hear them out, but the possibility of a crossover going further than just cosmetics really turns me off. So I was like, okay, I'd love to hear like what specifically that might manifest as. Star said, mostly I don't want a destination and weapons that look like they were taken directly from Star Wars, and they already seem to be doing the weapons part based off the promo stuff from yesterday, which is pretty accurate because that blaster looks very Star Wars, like we said, as sort of does the lightsaber sword thing. And then I said, okay, to better understand your perspective, assuming they do exactly what you're worried about here, what is it that you don't actually like? Like, help me understand the problem, right? Is it the idea that if a ship looks like a Star Wars ship, that could equally look like a Vex ship, and you would prefer, like, the Vex ship? Like, is that what's going on? And Star says, I mostly just don't want an expansion to possibly feel like I'm stepping into a different game that's been Destiny-ified, which is why I can get over cosmetics being the crossover material, or even the 30th anniversary stuff, which was just different Bungie IPs being used for weapons and cosmetics. I'm not opposed to crossovers in general. They're obviously healthy for revenue, and it's just kind of a product of live service games nowadays. I just prefer playing Destiny for Destiny and not having meaningful chunks of the game looking like another franchise entirely. So do I think that Star has some valid points here and a valid perspective? Sure, yeah. I think that the idea that you would want in an ideal world to play Destiny for Destiny is totally fair. But what I'm personally struggling to kind of wrap my head around from the people in this camp is, if we're fine with weapons and we're fine with cosmetic stuff and things like that, right? And that's sort of like the look of certain stuff in the game. What is it about like a planet, for example, like this, which looks Star Wars-y? Like, what is it about that that would not be good if it also happened to be Star Wars inspired, right? Like, that is something I just don't really understand. Like, if you told me that one of my like favorite zombies maps of all time was based on another IP, it was like an homage to that IP, I would sort of be like, cool, okay. Like, it stands alone as a really cool piece of art. And so for me, it isn't necessarily a detraction from the source. Like, I think that maybe what's happening here is that there are people that are putting the Destiny aesthetic and IP on a pedestal as being the only output that Bungie could make that would be good, almost. And then the idea that Bungie might make something else with a different tone or vibe is like instantly below that. But surely there has to be a world, if we're engaging with this art faithfully, right, in good faith, surely there's a world where they do that thing, they take that turn, they surprise us with a new twist, and it's actually better, right? And we're just assuming that it's worse because it's linked to Star Wars, but I don't think that that necessarily has to be the case. I'm not saying by any means that it being like a corporate collaboration automatically means it's anything. I'm just saying that we're all assuming right now that because it's linked to Star Wars, it's automatically the worst possible scenario there. But I feel like if Bungie are making a Bungie thing and they're taking stuff that they love about Star Wars, right, which they've already been doing. They've already got Palpatine's laser beams in the game, right? They've already got all this stuff that is very much thematically linked to Star Wars because they grew up engaging with that art, right? Like the devs themselves. So they're doing what they've already done, but in a way that they basically can lean into in a more expansive way now, perhaps because they have a licensing deal where like they can do it safely without getting sued like crazy. And that gives them the opportunity to basically say, let's do the Renegades, Outlawsy, sort of bounty huntery kind of vibe in Destiny, and let's cook there and see what happens, right? And so like, I'm almost thinking about this not from the perspective of Star Wars anymore, but more from the perspective of like what this says. Diving into the criminal underworld and taking down an evil empire. Like, that to me sounds really cool. That sounds like an angle that, at least so far in my Destiny journey, which I'm in the early stages of, I haven't experienced anything like that to date. And that sounds awesome. Like, I always wanted Halo to go in that direction of like giving me a bit more human stories about what's happening to Earth while all this crazy stuff's going on with Master Chief and everything, like out in space and all this bonkers stuff up above. Like, I would love some more human stories, some insights into life in that universe, right? And it feels like this is maybe sort of a step towards that for us in Destiny, which like I'm pretty effusive about. Like, that sounds really cool to me. It's just been really interesting hearing all these people being like, oh my God, they're doing a Star Wars expansion that's automatically going to be bad, because I sort of wonder like, okay, I totally hear what you're saying, but first of all, you have to engage with the source material that says it's just inspired and an homage. Nothing has said that it's going to be glup shitto, right? And second, there has to be a world where it's good. Like, it's not automatically bad just because it's inspired by, like, they're already inspired by stuff. We recognize that, right? So they're just sort of leaning into that for a thematic season of the game, if you will, in the expansion. And to me, that sounds like something that I'm neutral to positive about, I suppose. And I've been a little bit confused as to why people are so inherently against it. And reading a lot of the tweets, it is just because people are assuming that you are going to be playing as Darth Vader. Like, that is the assumption that a lot of people have made. And they're just not reading what the website or what the game or whatever says. And like, okay, if we're not going to read and we're just going to sort of post hot takes about stuff, like whatever, fair enough. But if you cut to the heart of the matter, I think that it's worthwhile to think about, like, it's worthwhile to ask yourself, what would this need to do to be absolutely amazing in your eyes, right? What would that need to be? Because if you are an honest person, there has to be a world where you can imagine it being amazing. Like, there just has to be. That goes with any media and art ever. Like, you should be able to visualize the things that needs to happen for it to actually be good. And I feel like with Bungie and with Destiny, people are unwilling to imagine that. They are absolutely resigned to the negative outcome. And I think that's unfortunate because it makes it a lot less of an enjoyable experience for those people to be fans of the game if they can only ever see it being bad in the future. Like at that point, maybe it's time to play another game. You know what I mean? So am I crazy hyped about the fact that it's a Star Wars collab? Not particularly. I'm not massively into Star Wars. Like, I like it loosely, I guess, but I'm not like obsessed. So am I like insta pre-ordering just because Star Wars is involved? No, that's not what I'm doing. But am I writing it off because Star Wars is involved? No, that's also not what I'm doing, which I feel like is a fairly neutral take, but weirdly, neutral here is like really against the grain. So I just wanted to kind of yap about this a little bit because I felt like there were a lot of people that weren't engaging with this particularly seriously. And I was getting asked on stream a lot yesterday, like, are you mad about Renegades? And I was like, brother, we've had a paragraph and 14 seconds of video. Like, I'm focused on the Edge of Fate right now, and Renegades will get revealed in September, and we'll see. We'll see. Okay? So let me know if you think that I'm completely off kilter here. I'm newer to Destiny, so maybe I just don't get it, bro. Like, some guy on Twitter earlier today was like saying that I like didn't have enough Destiny playtime to have an opinion on this. And I was just like, don't think that's how that works. But let me know if you agree with him. And I'll continue to sort of make these sorts of videos in the meantime.